Welcome to U.S. Law Shield News Update in Houston. I'm Sam Malone. I want to thank you for joining us today as we broadcast on Facebook Live. Feel free to leave a comment, and we'll try to read them on the air as we're progressing along with our discussion. Joining me, as always, is Emily Taylor, program attorney, U.S. Law Shield, and she's joining us via Skype today. Em, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Fantastic. Good to have you aboard. Here's a story that was picked up by one of the local news stations, and it had to do with road rage. Okay? Somebody, I guess you're driving down the street or the highway, and someone does something stupid, cuts you off, drives slow, and for some reason you get angry. New report shows road rage incidents. This is from KPRC in Houston. New report shows road rage incidents involving guns are on the rise, and Houston ranks third for cities with the most gun-related road rage incidents since 2014. The numbers are, let's say in 2014, there were 247 reported road rage incidents with guns, went to 620, and that's their stats, their data. Do you see as well also an increase in road rage incidents where a gun or weapon is involved?
I have not seen an increase, and I really can't speak to their numbers. But when you think about it logically, it's really not surprising that Houston would have a lot of road rage incidences just by the sheer size of the city. I think that couching us as having a gun or road rage problem is probably a disingenuous way to express it. Harris County also has more DWIs than any other county in the entire country. Does that mean that Harris County has a huge drinking problem? No, of course not. It means that we're a very highly populated county. And I think that what we're seeing in this news article is just the same idea. We have a lot of people, a lot of cars, and you're going to have more instances than, let's say, a smaller town like Austin.
Right. It's pure math, as Houston is America's fourth largest city. And it's growing every year, and people are moving to Texas. In general, about 1,000 people a day are moving. So, yeah, we're going to have some high stats. Let's talk about road rage. I'm sure you're the most adorable, wonderful, peaceful, easy driver out there. But to somebody else, you're driving and you get cut off and there's anger. What do you do? Here you are, you're a program attorney. What do you do when someone cuts you off and gives you one of the fine fingers that are attached to your hand?
Sure. Well, believe it or not, I may have inherited a little bit of hot-headedness on the road. I'll blame my father for that one. And I understand the struggle. But unfortunately, what we see over and over again is that if you feel that you have to defend yourself in road rage by displaying a firearm, it's not an absolutely unlawful activity, and I'll talk about the law in just a second, but practically, it's a really bad idea if you have any other option. Right. So by the law, pardon?
No, I'm just agreeing. I'm just being Mr. Nice. I'm agreeing with you. So by the law, go ahead. By the law, what?
By the law, you can meet force with force, and displaying a firearm is a use of force. And potentially someone threatening you on the road, they're also using force against you. But the problem is that, first of all, words alone should not justify your use of force. The other issue is that your use of force has to be reasonable, it has to be immediately necessary, and it also needs to be proportional to the amount of force that is being displayed against you. Now, you might hear that and think, well, that doesn't mean that if someone's being really dangerous and trying to sideswipe me and run me off the road, that I shouldn't be able to display a firearm. And I would agree with you there. But what I'll tell you is, if you're in your car and someone else is in their car and you're just driving along, the practical reality is the guy who displays the gun is going to get arrested. And you're going to have to fight that legal battle in court.
All right. So, Emily Taylor, program attorney, U.S. Law Shield with us. You use the word proportional, and I like that. And so somebody giving you a finger and you brandishing a semi-automatic is not proportional, correct?
No, although in the moment it might feel like it. You're going to have a hard time justifying that as being proportional in a court of law. Now, imagine a different scenario where instead of just you accidentally cut someone off, they give you the finger and brake check you and come to give you the finger again. I mean, that's horrible behavior, but probably not enough to justify the displaying of a firearm. Now, let's say hypothetically, instead, that person has sort of like what we were talking about a moment ago. They're trying to sideswipe you. They're trying to run you off the road. You look in the car, they're really unhinged, and you feel like your only option, I stress that, only option would be to display a firearm. That is perhaps a more proportional use of force. But again, I'll caution you, if both people are in their cars, we see over and over and over again that the police just assume the guy with the gun is the bad guy and they make that arrest.
Exactly. So you're in your vehicle, somebody gives you the finger. And I know, look, it escalates very quickly, so I'll say it slowly. If you get a mean face, or as you say, brake check, that's a great phrase. I love that. Find a way to go in a different direction and call it a day. But tempers flare quick. What if you give the finger and the other person brandishes the gun? It's not proportional, but it's more or less right now legally in your favor. If they brandish a gun, Emily Taylor, program attorney, am I lawful in brandishing a gun for an even playing field? Does it work that way?
That certainly would qualify for the proportional check. I still would say if there is any way to get around it, if you can hit the brakes, if you can do anything other than pull your gun, and I say this for all lawful gun owners, regardless of the situation in the car, that should be your first choice. I can't tell you if your guts really feel like this is the only thing that's going to keep me safe. Right. I can't tell you not to trust that gut instinct. And certainly, if you are not the first to reveal a pistol, the proportionality qualifier is checked off, probably reasonableness and probably everything else. But that's all things considered in a perfect world where that's how it gets reported to the police. Bear in mind that, unfortunately, the aggressor and the bad guy, sometimes they get to the 911 call before you do. And when they do, it's not going to be, hello, 911, I was driving like an idiot and I pulled a gun and then he pulled a gun in response. It's going to be this crazy man pointed a gun at me and he shouted at me he was going to blow my brains out. It's going to be the scenario. If they get to report the scenario first, it's not going to be the story that actually occurred or the one that makes it look like you were reasonable and proportional.
Got it. On Facebook Live, by the way, we're having a discussion about road rage with Emily Taylor, program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. You can view it on their Facebook page, Texas Law Shield. All right, so now the road rage has escalated, and you see this weekly on YouTube. Now people are out of their car, right? Forget about, I'll give you a one-finger salute and drive off. Now they're out of their car. Now what? And this all happened in a matter of seconds sometimes.
It can. Again, this is just as a defense attorney who's seen these things play out in court over and over again. If someone is getting out of their car coming towards you, if you can lock the doors and get away, that's your best first option. Now, what I will say is if someone has approached your car and they have actually reached out to touch your car in some way, either they've got some kind of baseball bat or they're going for your door handles. At that point, if you display a pistol, we almost never see people arrested in that scenario because, we're out of the realm of, it might not be immediately necessary because everyone's in their cars and they're just angry. And we've moved into a scenario where someone is actively out of their car and trying to threaten you. And that does, if it gives you a little bit of peace as a gun owner in these sort of situations, that does give you the benefit of the doubt in the eyes of law enforcement more often than not.
Let me ask you this. Does being a woman versus a man matter? Does having babies in the car matter as a defense of why you displayed a firearm because you were in fear of your life from a crazy person who was road raging you? Can you say, well, I got babies in the car seats, versus look at me, I'm just a dude by myself. Does it matter in the eyes of the law?
It sure does. And it's not written into the law, that women or children get the benefit of the doubt where others do not. But just practically, when we're assessing whether or not someone acted reasonably, generally speaking, law enforcement is willing to think that a woman or someone protecting children responding with a firearm is more reasonable simply because they have fewer resources in terms of hand-to-hand combat if it came to that. It's a great point to bring up, in fact, and I will note that of the clients that we have who have been arrested for pulling guns in the car in this sort of scenario where there's someone outside of their car threatening them, they are all men who have pulled guns on women.
Ooh, really?
Which, I can be as dangerous as the next guy. I won't, equality. But in the eyes of the law, they really they're going after these guys who have pulled the guns on women who are the aggressors.
Gosh, like Danger in Manolo Blahniks. Emily Taylor joining us. We have our discussion. We're on Facebook Live. You can join in the discussion, leave your questions or comments. She's a program attorney at the U.S. Law Shield. Okay, so you don't display the weapon. Okay, we got that down. But what if you verbally say, hey, pal, or crazy person or woman or whatever it is, stay away from me. I have a gun. Now, you haven't shown anything. You haven't brandished anything. I got to get to the camera. You haven't brandished anything, okay? You didn't run to the trunk and take something out, but you verbalized what you may or may not be in possession of. Where does that fit into the picture?
That's a great question, and that is a great thing to do if you can do so tactically and with still preserving your the sanctity of your body and your life. But that's where we go into proportional uses of force. I would say that very low on the ladder of uses of force would be something like that: a verbal command to stop, a verbal threat, hey, I've got a gun and I'm going to use it if you don't stop doing what you're doing. Up the ladder still, perhaps just pulling your jacket back, revealing a firearm, up the ladder still, unholstering a firearm. And then the highest use of force that we're going to see in terms of firearms is going to be actually pointing a gun at someone. Once you pull the trigger, you've exceeded the use of force and you've entered the realm of deadly force. But we have this continuum of force that starts with exactly what you're talking about, which are these verbal commands. And it's a really great way to use force and still ensure that you are acting reasonably and proportionally.
Got it. Emily Taylor, program attorney with the U.S. Law Shield. We're on Facebook Live on Texas Law Shield. All right, one final question, because you've been wonderful and patient. And what's great is you break it down for a goofball like me to the lowest common denominator. How important is it to be heard by witnesses and others when you're declaring that you may or may not have a weapon or stop or get away? How important is it to verbalize it so that that person and that person can hear you?
Incredibly important. That is one of the problems that we have defending road rage cases in court, is that generally speaking, it is, your classic he said, she said scenario, or he said, or whatever, however it happens to fall. And so you really only have yourself as a witness on your own behalf. Now, anytime you can verbalize and you can create more witnesses who will say, I know that, officer, you guys are going to have to assume that the guy with the gun did the wrong thing. But no, we saw it. And we know that he tried to de-escalate. We know that he was attacked. Whatever it happened to be, it is incredibly important to have neutral bystanders who can talk to the officers and potentially even testify in a trial for you.
So it also, in that vein of conversation, it's also not a bad idea to have your cell phone, if possible, if you're capable of, to have your cell phone on in a video record mode or an audio record mode to help you down the road should there be a legal issue. Wait, she just went.
Well,
I may be wrong. You're the lawyer.
Hypothetically,
yes.
Sure. I would say if you do that, again, it's create a new piece of evidence in your favor. Wonderful. I would advise, and I only advise this based on past clients who have not done this, and it has turned out disastrously. If you do create a piece of evidence by audio or video recording, do not disclose it until you and your attorney have had a chance to sit down and watch it. Yes. You are under no, as the defendant in Texas, criminal law is we do not have what we call reciprocal discovery, which means the defendant is under no obligation to disclose information to the state if it's not favorable to the client. So it's very important to hold on to it, sit, make sure that things happen the way that you remember that they happen, because there's a lot of adrenaline in these situations. A lot of things can you can remember quite differently. Take a look at that evidence before mentioning it to law enforcement and submitting it to the prosecution.
This was actually a great tutorial. Do I need to send you? You gonna send me a bill? Do I send you like $2.50 an hour or something like that? Because
I'll bill you.
You schooled us, and all those watching right now on Facebook Live, on the Facebook page of Texas Law Shield, you schooled us and really helped us out. Bottom line, if you have an incident, just whatever. Put on, Engelbert Humperdinck on the radio, chillax, and think about unicorns and puppies and donuts and just go home. Call it a day.
If you can help it.
No, I hope so. You scared the heck out of us with all the downsides of these things. And if you missed any part of it, go back to our Facebook page, Texas Law Shield, and you can pick up on the conversation between Emily and myself. Emily Taylor's a program attorney with U.S. Law Shield, uslawshield.com. I appreciate you taking the time to join us to talk about such an important issue, road rage, right here. And thanks for joining us via Skype.
Always happy to do it.
Have an outstanding day. I'm in Houston. I'm Sam Malone. For more, go to uslawshield.com. See ya.